Good morning, Chair Postman, board members and staff. The virtual lobby is open, the physical lobby is open, and we're ready to go.
Thanks, Justin. Good morning, everybody. We'll call to order the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for July 6, 2022. Our first item is review and consideration of extension of a pilot program for level of service at the University of Washington Stadium. And Becky Smith, our Regulation and Rules Director, is with us to present that. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Postman and board members. I'm Becky Smith, and I'm the Director of Licensing and Regulations.
What did I say?
You threw a couple other things in there.
What did I say? Oh, well, you do. That's it all. Okay. So,
good morning. This morning, I'm bringing forward for approval the renewal of a pilot program for Aramark LLC for the University of Washington. This is again a request to renew the pilot program. That the consideration of the renewal was from the previous approval of 2021 football season. If approved, this would allow for an exception to the levels of service within the operating plan. That what Aramark is requesting is that we allow beer and wine in general seating. Again, this would be the second pilot approval. The first one was a shortened season. As you know, last year, the football season wasn't as long as normal. Again, that with COVID and the opening up of the SEF, that they had requested a pilot. The allowance of beer and wine in the stands for general seating would, of course, be prohibited in the student section. The concession stands will sell no more than 2 drinks per transaction and will ensure proper identification checks occur to ensure that there's no sales to minors. All beer and wine will be in plastic glasses, which of course will differ from any non-alcoholic drink. And to assist with overconsumption, one of the things that Aramark did last year, and again will do again this year, is not allow for re-entry into the stadium. So once someone leaves, they can't come back in. As with all pilot programs, that licensing and enforcement sit down with the pilot program, and we review. At the beginning, we sit down, in the middle, and then at the end of the pilot, we sit down. That what we're looking to do with the representatives from our division and from enforcement and from the licensee is really to determine what's going well and what's not going well. Of course, again, with the shortened season, it was hard to determine, that we saw some concerns, but we weren't able to address those concerns right away, or they weren't able to. So we did ask the pilot for the Aramark for a couple of areas to improve, and that, of course, is that we requested for supporting documents to ensure that that the renewal was appropriate and not jeopardizing public safety. We requested, in addition to that they provide LCB, the licensing division, with information from not just the University Police Department, of course, but from the City of Seattle. We wanted to make sure that we wanted to hear from those folks how things were working, how they thought that the pilot was going. We heard nothing but good feedback from the City of Seattle Police Department, and they actually reached out to the North Precinct and asked them for feedback as well. And we collected data to see if there was an increase in calls for assistance. We had 0 increase calls for assistance. And we also asked for them we asked our enforcement side to look into the DUI incidents. So from the last call, so where did you receive your last drink? And we heard from our captain in that area, and he shared with us that they had showed 0 reports for both years, actually, for calls for DUIs. So some of the other measures that Aramark and the University of Washington decided to make changes was that, for one thing, I just have to say is that the communication between licensing and enforcement and Aramark, it was fabulous. If they had questions, they reached out. If we had concerns, we reached out, and those areas were addressed. That they're looking at providing new signage that will be added to the perimeters of the building and prior to entrance points, indicating that there's no alcohol consumption allowed in those entry lines. That additional signage will also be added to the student section, stating that no alcohol is allowed. They're not just adding signs, though. They're also going to be adding 38 alcohol enforcement staff. They're going to be deployed outside of the stadium, inside of the stadium as well, to monitor the lines at the different public points of entry. They're also adding 10 new alcohol enforcement guards that will be stationed at the points of entry to the student sections to assist those ushers with monitoring to prevent alcohol entering the student section. And then 9 additional alcohol enforcement will be rovers, and they'll be on duty throughout the student section, again, to be monitoring for possession and consumption of underage drinkers. And then an increase in alcohol enforcement monitoring compliance for ID checking. So the 2 limit drink, so someone can go up and order 2 drinks, and that's all they can't walk back with 4 drinks. And so those alcohol enforcement officers will also be monitoring that as well. Again, licensing is recommending approval of an additional year for the pilot program for the levels of service that were requested. Questions?
Mrs. Ali, I think that's great. Of all of the things that you just described that they initiated themselves to enforce and to put in place, it shows that they are committed and that they understand the concerns of making sure there's no overservice and underage service. So that's great.
Thank you.
I also support, and I am familiar with the work of Aramark, and they are a organization that takes seriously their responsibility to monitor, and so I also support that. One thing I might suggest is that over the course of the pilot that we actually think about doing a survey of people who attend the games. There are upward of 70,000 attendees, and it would be interesting to just hear from fans themselves about their experience with this over the pilot period. So just a suggestion.
Great, thank you.
I would just add that I think you and Nicola Reed did a really great, thorough job dealing with UW and Aramark on this. I'm glad we're going to do another pilot program. No one is, thinks we're ready to go full bore. And I hope that other sports entertainment facilities are paying attention. And the one thing that I would love to see is, you were talking about a lot of the best practices that they're instituting there to try to restrict this. Everybody should be doing those things already. And we're, I think through this pilot program, hopefully we'll show that when you do those things, you reduce problems. And in the future, we shouldn't have to wait till we have some new pilot program or a new kind of allowance for somebody to start a new service, but just do these things. Add the signage, add the additional enforced people, stop the reentry. These seem to be really proven tools for reducing problem drinking. And I would just hope that everybody else who's in this line of work is watching what we're looking for here. Do it first. Don't wait for us. So with that, I will consider a motion to approve the pilot program for level of service at the University of Washington.
This is Ali. I move that we approve the pilot program for the level of services at the University of Washington.
In a second.
I second that motion.
Great.
I don't know if you guys can hear me. My internet's kind of a little shaky today.
Yeah, no, we hear you loud and clear, Jim. Thank you. Okay, then that is approved. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move to rulemaking timelines over all industries, and we'll have Dr. Kathy Hoffman, the Policy and Rules Manager, start with an overview for that. Good morning.
Great. Good morning, Chair Postman, board members Garrett and Bollendroff. I'm just going to take a moment of privilege in here and say how great it is to be back in the boardroom. I have missed it tremendously, so great to be back here and see everyone. Starting with a brief monthly update on rules and policy for you, and starting with cannabis. With respect to THC compound definitions, we continue internal discussions concerning how we might expand definitions within our current limited statutory authority around THC compounds. We meet again internally next week with the agency's final list and unlearn session before we learn to move to our new model scheduled, and that last session, excuse me, is scheduled for July 28th. With respect to social equity, we continue our deep analysis of the ways that other states have approached social equity programs, including legal challenges encountered. And we've reached out to a constitutional scholar to assess the risks related to our approach and our rule proposal. With respect to implementation of second substitute House Bill, 1210, Jeff will be presenting final rules for that a little later in the agenda today. Other rule happenings on the cannabis side, we continue to consider revisions to current packaging and labeling rules and advertising rules as well. And we're taking a deep dive into how rules have been functioning and whether they're achieving their desired outcome. As we discussed yesterday as well, Jeff will bring a response to a rule petition we received that asked the agency to initiate rulemaking to make the temporary curbside delivery allowance permanent. And Jeff will bring that response and recommendation to you by July 20th. I do anticipate a rule petition to allow minors on licensed cannabis premises. Again, that's consistent with a temporary allowance we offered during the COVID-19 outbreak. And we are also contemplating our options concerning our rules related to canopy. And those are contained in WAC 314-55075. So any questions on cannabis rule updates?
The only one I didn't catch this yesterday on the minors in cannabis facilities. Do we have that already a petition, or you said you expect that?
We anticipate one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
All right,
been
thanks.
questions about whether or not one had been received.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, we anticipate one.
Any other questions?
All right, so moving on to alcohol. The highly anticipated axe throwing rules become effective on Saturday, July 9th. So that's right around the corner. With respect to implementation of Senate Bill 5940 concerning packaging services, we are scheduled to bring our rule proposal to you, CR 102, on July 20th, so the next board meeting. So that would set the public hearing for August 31st. And under that timeline, we could bring final rules for adoption to you as soon as September 14th. So moving pretty quickly on that project. Moving on to general rulemaking. Audrey will present on another highly anticipated rule project by our staff, at least, concerning electronic submission of documents. And that's on the agenda a little later this morning. So on the horizon and for general rulemaking, we do have an expedited project to update physical and email addresses that are currently referenced in rule that are now obsolete. So we'll bring that to you in the coming weeks. And then moving on to board interim policies, we do have 2 policies that will be converted probably at the July 20th board meeting. That concerns wet flower transfer and frozen alcohol pops. Likely rescission concerning outsourced CBD. That's another board interim policy that described how the LEAF system would handle those products. And since LEAF is no longer being used, we're taking another look at that board interim policy. And then we're doing an additional analysis on the distilleries and alternating proprietorship board interim policy. So once we complete those 4, we will have retired all of our board interim policies. So I hope to have that done by September.
Good.
So any questions?
Don't?
Kathy, this is Ali, and I meant to ask the question yesterday, and I think Becky is still on, but on the axe throwing, do we know if we've had a lot of requests for that and what that's looking like so far?
Yeah, if we could defer to Becky for a little more information on that, that would be helpful. But I know through rules, we did have a lot of questions around when the rules would become effective,
Right.
because people were anxious to apply.
Becky?
So to your question, Ollie, that we have had a lot of requests and a lot of inquiries. We're going to be training our staff this week, along with enforcement as well. That I will say that it's not going to be immediate. That folks will have to go through the application process and the safety plan in order to get this additional added addition to their license or to apply for a new license. But we have quite a few inquiries, yes.
We have, okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
All right. And we'll move to alcohol side. Ms. Basic, yes?
Chair Postman, members Garrett and Vondroff. This is actually a general rulemaking
Oh, that's right.
package today. I think I
I looked at you and I think alcohol, but
Yeah.
this is general rules. It's electronic service. My apologies.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Today, I'm requesting the board adopt final rules related to electronic transmission of documents for service and filing. So some brief background. The final rules before you today are needed to streamline and modernize business and adjudicated processes and establish a consistent agency-wide approach to electronic service and filing. We anticipate this approach will benefit anyone that interacts with the agency, as well as reduce potential impacts to the Agency Technology System Modernizations Project, or SMP. To develop the CR 102, we shared conceptual draft rules publicly through GovDelivery. The comments we received were included as attachment B to the CR 102 memo and were taken into consideration as the rule proposal was developed. The CR 102 and proposed rules were approved by the board and filed with the code revisor on May 11th. And during the public comment period, which ran from May 11th to June 22nd, no written comments were received and no oral testimony was provided.
Yeah.
So there are no changes from the proposed rules in the final rules before you today. In summary, the final rule establishes electronic transmission as an additional means for service and filing of documents. Electronic transmission is defined as including but not limited to email, web portal, fax, or other similar methods, and the final rule outlines procedures for service and filing of documents through electronic transmission. In terms of timeline, if the board adopts the final rules today, I'll file the CR 103 with the code revisor, and the rules will go into effect 31 days after filing, which would be August 6th. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Don't see any questions. Just on behalf of the board staff, thank you for your work on this. They're very excited about it. So,
Thank you.
and with that, we'll look for a motion to adopt the CR 103 for electronic service and filing rules.
Jim, I'm gonna let you do the motion and I'll second. Normally,
I make a motion
we
that
tag team that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, good to know. So I make a motion that we adopt the rule making for
And
electronic
Mrs.
filing.
Ali, I second.
Okay, great. Then that is approved. Thank you, Ms. Basic. Thank you all. Cannabis-related rulemaking with Jeff Kildall.
Thank you, Chair Postman, and good morning, members Vollendroff and Garrett. Today, I would like to request your approval of a CR 103 permanent rulemaking package to implement second substitute House Bill 1210 entitled Replacing Marijuana with Cannabis, which passed the Washington State Legislature during the 2022 legislative session. In passing the bill, the legislature found that the use of the term marijuana in the United States has discriminatory origins and should be replaced with the more scientifically accurate term cannabis. For this reason, the bill replaced the term marijuana with the term cannabis throughout the revised Code of Washington, including Chapter 6950 RCW, the Uniform Controlled Substances Act. The bill also directs the LCB to replace the term marijuana with the term cannabis throughout the rules of the Liquor and Cannabis Board through the expedited CR 105 rulemaking process. This rulemaking replaces every occurrence of the term marijuana with the term cannabis throughout Title 314 WAC, the rules of the Liquor and Cannabis Board. During the public comment period, the LCB received 2 comments, neither of which resulted in any additional changes to the rules. So if approved for filing today, these amended rules would become effective 31 days from now, on August 6th, 2022. And this ends my presentation, and can I answer any questions?
Questions from board members? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kildall. I appreciate that. Any comments, anything before we take a motion here? I'll just say it's a great thing. It took a little while. Some will think this is a simple thing. It took a little while, and it's going to take some work to get it all done, but it's important, and it is part of our ongoing evolution of really the knowledge and acceptance of cannabis and learning about the history of some of these things. So I appreciate the work that you, Mr. Kildall, and everybody put into this in the legislature. Is there a motion to approve the CR 103 for implementing second substitute House Bill 1210, which replaces marijuana with cannabis?
This is Ali. I move adoption of the CR 103, replacing marijuana with cannabis.
And a second?
And this is Jim. I second that.
Great. And that is approved. Thank you, everybody. I was just thinking I've stumbled so many times today and gotten titles wrong. You'd think I didn't have an agenda in front of me, but I do. Last item, I've got some people signed up. General public comment. This is the first board meeting that I've done where we have both people online and in person here to comment during this period. A couple of general reminders. We're recording as we always do. When you're called on, both internally, we'll give you a minute to come to the podium, online for Dustin to find you and allow you to speak and get your camera on. When you are ready, state your name and affiliation for the record, and then be mindful that you get 4 minutes and only 4 minutes. And when you have 30 seconds left, Dustin will let you know that clock is ticking for 30 seconds. Then we ask you to really bring it to a close at the end of the 30 seconds. I think we will just start with the people that are in the room today, and then we'll move online and see where they are. And the first person I have signed up is Peter Manning.
If I stumble, forgive me. It's been a minute since I've been here in public. I'd like to thank board member Debbie Postman, Ali Garrett, and Bollendroff. My name is Peter Manning with Black Excellence Cannabis. I came down here today with anticipation that we were going to have the rules for the social equity as far as if they were going to come out or whatnot. And I'm kind of concerned because I think that, for 2 years I've fought to make this happen, to get Black and brown inclusion. And till this day, right now, we still have less than 1% of Black and brown in the cannabis industry, whether it be retail sector, processor, producer, and now there's another different variant out there, Delta 9, Delta 8, these other different aspects of cannabis. Black people are still not included in any of this type of conversation. And, no pun intended, Black Excellence Cannabis was created in 2018, but the movement actually started in 2011. But the Washington State now is just now adapting the word cannabis. So see, we're well aware and ahead of the learning curve. What we need to do is stop with the procrastination as far as getting us included. There's too many people that are getting a stronger and stronger foothold in this industry that are not Black or brown. That's going to put us at a greater disadvantage. I don't know the only thing I can say is, look, study time is over. It seems sad that every time something's done wrong to us as a people, there's got to be a study session. What we should do is be looking for a solution to our problems, and we should do it collectively all together. And I'm not going to point any finger at any particular group, but there are groups that are out there now that are white groups that have been participating in the cannabis industry since its onset in Washington, that have gotten their funds from that. They've created wealth because of this. Black Excellence Cannabis, we literally started from the dirt. We don't have any capital. We spend money out of our own pockets to come up here and tell you guys that we are fighting for Black and brown inclusion. And we What do we need to do here to get some type of recognition, to get some movement here? We got to get something going. You know, it's either we continue the fight or we start working together. We have to change this. This has to change. Today should be a day that we should be celebrating. Today is a day that we should have came in here. It should be said, hey, you know what, Black Excellence Cannabis, we have a way path for the Black and brown inclusion. Here it is. Today, it's not here. I haven't heard one word mention of it here. I'm asking this board, Ali Garrett, David Postman, Mr. Bollendroff, I'm asking you guys to let's get going. Let's make something happen, please. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Michael Check is next. You're going to pass? Okay. Mike Asai.
What I say after that? I'm sorry. Mr. President.
Good morning.
I gotta say.
Good morning, Chair Postman. Good morning, Board Member Garrett and Board Member Valendroff. My name is Mike Asai. I am the founder of Emerald City Collective 2010. We were the second Black owned in Washington State. We were the first in downtown Seattle in early 2011. I'm here today, as Peter Manning stated, in hopes that the social equity rules would have came out today, but they're not. It is very disheartening that it's been 2 years, and for myself and others in the community, it's been 6 years since the closure of our collective. And as I feel an unjust closure, considering that Emerald City Collective Gardens was licensed, paid taxes, did all the right things. And as was stated before, anybody can go see in our incorporation with Emerald City Collective, we stated the word cannabis, and that was in 2010. And here we are in 2022. So I appreciate, as far as the legislative, the senators, representatives, everyone involved to, you know, look at marijuana as being racist and let's change the name. Okay, we were ahead of the curve. We were also ahead of the curve at Emerald City Collective Gardens as far as testing. We tested for pesticides, we tested for molds. This was all early on, over 10 years ago. But I'm here in public. This is my first time, and I'm happy to be here in public with you guys. And I just want to just briefly make a statement. It pains me to state this today because I had high hopes for the Social Equity Task Force. The Social Equity Task Force had several members not for social equity at all. There was manipulation from the task force members and other groups claiming to be for social equity. These other groups had other intentions for themselves and not the community as a whole, causing delays and giving LCB recommendations not equal to concerns brought forth from the beginning of the Social Equity Task Force meetings in 2020. Some task force members completely ignored what community had been stating for months. Your counterpart, Board Member Garrett, was and has been wonderful throughout this social equity process. Herself and several others were and are indeed supportive of the social equity in cannabis program. And we thank Ali Garrett for the work done. As I have stated before on many occasions, when it comes to the drafting of the rules, we believe that a percentage of the social equity licenses should go towards Black and the brown community. We understand that there's a big uproar if they all go, but we believe that a percentage should go to Black and brown. Those who meet the criteria for social equity program, they should be top of the list. And let me back up. So the first priority should be dispensary owners who are Black and brown. Okay, they should be top of the list. The second priority should be certificate holders who are current certificate holders that are Black and brown. They should be second. And third should be just your general social equity applicant. The Black and brown community members that are looking to get into the cannabis market have been waiting for a long time. African Americans have faced the brunt enforcement when it pertains to cannabis arrests, and the brown community second. Why cannot Black and brown be top of the list to receive social equity licenses? And I just want to leave on my last note here a statement from Director Rick Garza. on the LCB website. And this is stated in regard, this back in 2020 in regards to social equity. And it states, I-502 missed an opportunity to incorporate a focus on social equity. The history of cannabis prohibition shows abundant evidence there was a disproportionate harm in communities of color. And those harmful effects remain with us today. So with that being said, LCB, please do the right thing for the community, do the right thing for Emerald City Collective Gardens, its constituents, do the right thing for Black excellence in cannabis and the full community. We are down here today in Olympia. We are speaking for the community, and I want the community to know that's online that we are here to fight every step of the way to get inclusion in the cannabis in Washington State. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to move to our online participants. The first person I have signed up is Kevin Shelton.
Kevin, you should be able to turn on your microphone and your speakers and your camera.
I would just ask you to check both. It seems like on the Teams program, you are unmuted. So maybe your computer microphone is turned down or off, muted or something. Or if you're on a phone, it could be your phone is muted. So just we'll give you a minute there to take a look at that. I know we've had problems in the past. We want to try to connect you here. Mr. Shelton, I'm going to check back with you after the next speaker, but I would just try to keep looking for what might be turned off there. Our next speaker is Ahmed King.
Good afternoon, or excuse me, good morning. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me good?
You bet.
All right. I'd like to say thank you first of all to all of our government representatives. Thank you, Peter and Mike Asai, for speaking. My name is Ahmed King. I am the Executive Secretary for Black Excellence in Cannabis. I'm not in person there today because I'm at my regular everyday job. With that being said, I want to definitely co-sign things that Peter and Mike Asai had mentioned. At meeting today, thinking that there would be a layout of the rules for social equity. Now, when I think about, we all know the history of Black people in this country, and we know how we have been disproportionately impacted by many social injustices. Cannabis has been legal here for some years. And if we represent less than 1%, the more time that goes on, the farther back that we fall behind. And I don't think that's fair. And as a voice of the people, I know that a lot of people that don't think that's fair. So let me bring someone up in the community. Papa John is an elder. He is a father. He is an outstanding man with an impeccable resume. He's 83 years old. No criminal record, meets all of the criteria. Over a mishap, I guess, with paperwork or whatever, his license in store was pulled back. But now, with the things that should be on the table, that should be on the forefront, why is it taking long for someone like him to get his dispensary back? And an 83 years old Black man. I hope he lives to be 183, but that's not the reality. So you all have a chance to help people, to include us. These are action words too, not study words. Why is there always a study? Why? But when you have a chance, an opportunity today to honor someone like Papa John, honor someone who was a pillar in the community, who I'm sure, and I know the only thing he's trying to do is leave an inheritance for his children and his children's children. And I just really have that question. And instead of us fighting, we really should be working together, coming up with solutions. We should be solution-based. If it takes another year or two, then how many more years again is that behind? And then we can quantify that in amount of, we can quantify that in real money, the same way everything else is quantified when it comes to a study of us. And we can see how it's just not fair and it's disproportionate. So if your house was on fire, you need water, right? Or you need somebody to come douse the flames. You don't need somebody to go, hey, you know what? Let me study how the smoke is billowing off your house or how close you are to a river, and then we'll get back to you. It doesn't work that way. And there definitely is a fire in the Black community. Why? Because we're behind. When we have a chance to catch up and start leveling out the playing field. And it seems that some people within this political organization just really don't care. I mean, that's okay. The other thing I would like to say real quick and just wrap it up is that I hope something gets done very soon. And I hope that we come together and we work as allies instead of a fight. I appreciate you all. Listen, LCB, let's do this. Let's do this now, not later. I appreciate you all. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Mr. Shelton, you want to try again? We've made you a presenter. You should be able to go ahead if you're unmuted on your device. We've all been there. There's something amiss. It's probably just the mute button on whatever you're on, whether it's a laptop or a phone or something of the sort. Okay, we have one other person signed up, so I'll come back to you one more time, Mr. Shelton. The next person signed up is Christopher King.
And Chair, I did confirm Christopher King's registration to speak today, but he's not online.
All right, well then let's just give Mr. Shelton a moment here to see if he can join us for his comments. That would be the last of the day. Okay, unmuted again at this end. And the only thing I could suggest maybe is between now and our next board meeting, if you want to get in touch, Dustin might be able to help troubleshoot this, not in the midst of the meeting and figure it out, because I know it's been an ongoing problem. Okay, I'm sorry you're not able to join us on that. I want to address the timing of the social equity a little bit. Just a point of personal privilege from myself, if I can. First of all, I'm not, I didn't have this date in my head as the day it would come out, so I don't know what that is. I do want to assure everybody that nobody will be surprised when it does come out. We won't just release that at a board meeting. We'll make sure everybody knows that if that's on an agenda, everybody will know, and we will definitely give everybody a heads up one way or another before it ever comes to the board for a public hearing or anything of the sort like that. I do want to, let me just tell you, everybody, a little bit about how we got to where we are. And I've talked about this a little bit, but I'm just going to be really candid with y'all. We had a rule package to address this, and we were ready to approve it. And I thought it was pretty good. And if we had approved it, we would, I think by now, it'd be final by today. We'd still have to do, get the applications going and everything, but we'd be ahead of where we are today. There's no doubt of that. But let me tell you why we're not there. Because people within the LCB continue to talk to people outside the LCB, including some of the people who we hear from. and talking amongst themselves and studying and looking at what other states are doing. And really on the brink of board approval, there was a consensus that we need to take another look. And we need to take another look for one reason, because we didn't have the highest level of confidence that it would achieve what we want it to achieve, which is to get these licenses in the hands of the people who deserve them. I think we agree on that goal. And so this was not by any stretch a study. There was no studying going on, believe me. This was the hardest nuts and bolts work that you can do. We said, okay, we put a lot of time into this. We had public input. We've vetted it with, legislators who might have their, strong opinions about it, and others in the industry. We certainly talked to lawyers about it, because as I think anybody who's been following this knows, the board is been very focused on finding something that is legally sustainable. We don't want to lose our entire program from legal challenge. So we've done a lot of work, but it was this self-reflection, self-critique, if you will, by the people who do this work, not by the board, by Ollie Garrett, certainly, but not by me. This came to me and they said, we're looking at this again. And Member Garrett was in the middle of all those conversations, providing the leadership that she has from day one. And the question was, are we doing everything we can do? Let's be darn sure before we take this out. Let's do it. So we went back. We said, what else can we do? What is going to work on this list? We're talking about the rubric. This is the list of things that applicants would get points for, right? Call it the rubric. What's on it? What's not on it? What could we add to it? What do the lawyers think? What would that impact be on the industry, on the people who are waiting for this, as we heard from some of you today? And that's what we're doing right now. And we're close. We are close. We're not studying it. We're thinking. We're debating. We're discussing. We're crafting. We're trying to figure out how do you say it exactly. Then we're trying to figure out where the points are. And I am not suggesting we're ahead of where we should be, right? Even if we did these rules when we first thought we would, the criticism that we're behind the curve would be valid. But I don't get the sense that the problem now, the holdup here, is because we're fighting and not working together. In fact, I would say that in some instances, some of the very things that are being talked about internally came from some of you who have talked to us on a regular basis about the flaws in the system that has put you in the position you are today, out of business. And we're looking at those things really hard. We're looking at those things and trying to figure it out. I think we will see this, I say very soon, but the board meets every other week. If we needed to, we could squeeze one in between. I think we might have one special session to hear from an expert on the constitutionality of some of these clauses, who we want to have review what we're looking at and air that publicly. So we might do that. I think the board is really committed in trying to get this done, our part of this done, by the end of the month. I think the schedule probably may not make that happen, but it would be the final approval of this part would probably be the first week in August, I bet. Is that right, Dr. Hoffman? Do you think that's our schedule? That's probably where we end up, because we have this other session we want to do before we make that final. So we're talking that. And so that puts us, probably a month behind where we thought we were going to be 6 months ago. When we started the social equity rulemaking, we had this idea that we would be perhaps accepting applications or having the program open, as they put it, in the fall. I don't, maybe late fall, maybe winter, but believe me, we're in a hurry. We want to get this done, but we're trying to make it better. That's what I guess that's my message today. The delay here is because we're trying to make it better, because the people internally at the LCB, from licensing and policy and under the leadership of Member Garrett, was, are we doing everything humanly possible? What else can we do here to have a meaningful, legally sustainable, equitable program? Because that's what we want to do. We don't want to, we're not trying to do one and done here. What we want to do is get the licenses out that we now have control over, get that done, show that this program works, and we can all go to the legislature and try to get the next big piece. Because the legislature didn't do anything last session, right? There were no new licenses out here. So this is what we got. And it's incumbent on us to get those out in that way. It's fair. It makes a more equitable industry. It'll sustain legal challenge or maybe avoid legal challenge. And I think it just is important for us to make that effort. Nobody inside the LCB just wanted to fill the page out and say, go ahead, board, approve it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. We need it to work. We want it to work. So again, can't say that we're not behind the curve. We are. And as it was pointed out today, look, the government is behind the curve from where many of you were in this business prior to 502. In your knowledge of the history of this industry, both before it was legalized and after, I understand that. All we can do is now try our best to dig in, to listen to people, and to work hard. But we're not studying anything. Nobody's saying we're studying. And I don't consider studying asking a lawyer, constitutional expert, to look at this and tell us what's going to happen. That's part of, frankly, good government. We have to do that. I think that's incumbent on the board members to do that. So, yeah, not to debate anything that I heard today. I just, we didn't share kind of a status update of where we're at. I'm not sure we've ever really said why we pulled it back in bits and pieces, but I just want to take that moment to do that. I will pause for a minute and see if either of my colleagues have anything to add. No? Okay. Then with that, we will keep doing our work. We will be sure to notify people when we have something coming. And feel free to reach out and ask if you're unsure what might be on the agenda. We'll always let you know. And I can promise there won't be any surprise announcement in any board meeting. So with that, we will adjourn the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, July 6th, 2022. Thank you all for coming. Bye. Bye, Jim. Bye, Eileen.
Bye. Thank you, David.